Just say the numbers were correct. My boss pressured me before the review. Do this and the promotion is yours. I looked at the false reports. I can't, I said. Her expression hardened. Then you've made your choice. My promotion vanished, but what she didn't know was I already. Each approval needs your integrity stamp. Lyra Astrid slid the folder across her glass desk. 5 years building this formula. Market tests showing 92% consumer satisfaction. Everything ready except your signature. I flipped through the pages, scanning the toxicity results with practiced precision. The numbers didn't match the raw data I'd reviewed yesterday, where respiratory irritation scores had shown consistent elevations. These charts displayed acceptable ranges. The changes were subtle but unmistakable. These figures have been altered. My voice remained steady despite the flood of adrenaline. Astrid's smile tightened at the corners. They've been optimized. The board presentation is tomorrow. People use these products in enclosed spaces around children, and people need their jobs. She leaned forward. 1,200 employees depend on this launch. Our competitors released their version in 6 weeks. I closed the folder. I can't sign this. Everyone makes compromises. Lyra, the vice presidency we discussed, that corner office overlooking the river. They're waiting for someone who understands business realities. I understand chemical toxicity levels that exceed safety thresholds. Astrid stood, smoothing her skirt. Sleep on it. The quarterly numbers would look magnificent with this launch, as would your compensation package. The next morning, my badge failed at the executive floor entrance. 3 attempts, 3 rejections. The security guard looked uncomfortable. The system says, "You're restricted to floors 1 through 5 now, ma'am." Back at my desk, a cream-colored envelope sat centered on my keyboard. Inside, a single sheet with Astrid's distinct handwriting. Promotion consideration. Postponed indefinitely. Not canceled. Postponed. The implication hung clear. Surrender your integrity and rewards await. For 3 years, I'd transformed the safety assessment division. Astrid had recruited me personally for my reputation as meticulous and unbending. "We need someone who will keep us honest," she'd said during my interview. Now, she wanted me to approve manipulated figures showing our newest formula caused insignificant breathing difficulties. My phone buzzed with a text from my colleague Julian. Meeting moved to conference be coming. When I arrived, conversation halted. 7 pairs of eyes tracked me to the only empty seat. Astrid spoke without looking in my direction. As I was saying, product launch preparations continue. We've addressed the minor concerns and remain on schedule. Minor concerns? I couldn't stop myself. The respiratory irritation scores have been reviewed thoroughly. Astrid interrupted. Let's move forward. Later that afternoon, she approached my desk. You're making entirely too much of this. Every successful company makes adjustments. These aren't adjustments. She moved closer, voice dropping. Those who can't support the team often discover they no longer have a team at all. Within days, my workplace transformed. Lunch invitations vanished. Conversations changed when I approached. During meetings, colleagues questioned every figure I presented. Are we certain these calculations are accurate? They'd ask with pointed significance. I continued analyzing chemical formulations, conducting new tests, saying nothing about my concerns, but refusing to approve the altered reports. 2 weeks later, Astrid called me to her office. The board keeps asking why our flagship product remains delayed. I explained, you're being excessively cautious. The formula causes respiratory distress. I stated simply. She pushed a paper toward me. Sign this or clean out your desk. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by bills, mortgage, medical insurance, student loans still lingering from my doctoral program. Astrid knew everyone in our industry. One call would close countless doors. My financial obligations weighed heavily. Yet, I possessed one advantage she'd overlooked. Connections beyond our industry. The following Monday, I signed the paper. Astrid's posture straightened with triumph. I knew you'd eventually make the sensible choice. Is my promotion back under consideration? I asked after we see how the launch performs. She answered with a dismissive wave. If you're enjoying this story so far, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything, and it helps these real corporate stories reach more people who need to hear them. Let me know in the comments if you've ever faced a similar ethical dilemma at work. I read every comment. My name is Lyra Winters, and until 3 weeks ago, I was the rising star of my company's product safety division. My colleagues used to call me the standard because I never bent rules, never overlooked details, and never signed off on anything questionable. My reputation for integrity had actually been my greatest career asset until it became my biggest liability. I grew up watching my mother struggle with chronic respiratory illness caused by workplace chemical exposure. Her employer had assured everyone the cleaning agents were perfectly safe. 20 years later, she still uses an inhaler daily. I earned my doctorate in chemical toxicology, determined to prevent others from suffering similar fates. When Astrid first recruited me, she emphasized how my values aligned with the company's commitment to safety. Your reputation for exactness is exactly what we need. She'd said, consumer trust is everything in this industry. For 3 years, I believed her. I built strict protocols, rejected formulas others might have passed, and gradually earned respect throughout the organization. Astrid showcased my department to investors as evidence of the company's dedication to safety. My thoroughness became a selling point. Then came Britex, our revolutionary cleaning formula. Development had cost millions in research. Marketing had already begun teasing its release. Competitors were racing to beat us to market. The only hurdle remaining was my final safety assessment. My team's initial tests revealed respiratory irritation levels, not immediately dangerous, but potentially harmful with repeated exposure. I shared these findings with Astrid, expecting the standard response reformulation until safety thresholds were met. Instead, she questioned our methodology. When repeated tests confirmed the original findings, she suggested adjusting the presentation of results. When I refused, her approach changed from persuasion to pressure. Do you understand what's at stake? She demanded during one closed-door meeting. 300 million in projected first-year sales, market dominance, your career, people's health is at stake, I countered. Minimal irritation, barely noticeable, you're being impractical. The stakes escalated with each refusal. First came subtle workplace isolation, then reassignment of my team members to other projects. Finally, the promised vice presidency dangled like bait, then snatched away when I wouldn't compromise. After signing the approval under duress, I noticed immediate changes. Colleagues who'd avoided me for weeks suddenly smiled in the hallways. My meeting input was valued again. Astrid even invited me to lunch, discussing future projects as though our conflict had never happened, but something fundamental had broken. Every smile felt hollow. Every conversation is calculated. 2 days after my signature, the board gathered to approve the final product launch. Astrid spoke confidently while I sat quietly in a corner, feeling sick about what I'd done. My phone vibrated silently in my pocket. A text from Mason in position. The CEO interrupted Astrid's presentation. Before we continue, I should mention we have unexpected visitors today. He gestured toward the doorway where 2 serious-looking individuals had appeared. These Consumer Products Safety Commission representatives are conducting an inspection today. Astrid froze. Today we received no notification. Astrid froze. Astrid froze. That's how unannounced inspections work. The older inspector replied with practice neutrality. We've received concerning information regarding your new product line and testing protocols. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Astrid's eyes found mine across the conference room, comprehension spreading across her face. We'll need access to all test records and safety assessments, the inspector continued. Original data, methodologies, everything. Now, as the room erupted with questions, I remained motionless, my expression carefully blank, even as Astrid's stare burned into me. What she couldn't possibly know yet was how methodical I'd been, how carefully I'd prepared. This was only the beginning. The question now wasn't whether I'd lose my job. That was inevitable. The question was who would fall with me and how hard. The boardroom cleared quickly. Directors scattered to offices, while staff scrambled to collect requested documents. Astrid remained frozen, her presentation slide still projected behind her. The words market leader amazed across the screen. You, she finally spoke through clenched teeth advancing toward me. How dare you? The younger inspector stepped between us. Miss Winters will be interviewed separately. Please collect your safety testing records and meet us in conference room C in 30 minutes. I gathered my notebook and walked out, my legs surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. In the hallway, I passed Julian, his eyes wide with panic. "What did you do?" he whispered. "What should you have done?" I replied, continuing toward the elevator. 3 years of meticulous work, every original test result, every email requesting changes, every version of altered reports, all preserved despite its scheduled drive purges. Mason texted again, standing by. "You okay?" I didn't answer. None of this felt okay. I met Mason Adler 5 years ago during my postdial work. He'd been among the youngest ever CPSC investigators, dedicated and uncompromising. We'd stayed connected, occasionally meeting for coffee to discuss industry trends. 3 weeks ago, during one of those meetings, I'd mentioned my theoretical situation. His response had been immediate. "That's not theoretical, Lyra. That's criminal." The next morning, an unmarked envelope appeared in my mailbox containing a secure contact protocol and the words, "When you're ready." I hadn't been ready until Astrid forced my signature on those reports. Conference Room C had transformed into an investigation headquarters. Boxes of files stood stacked against one wall. 2 additional investigators had joined the team, systematically photographing documents and taking notes. Miss Winters, the senior inspector, gestured toward a chair. "I am Inspector Rivera. We appreciate your cooperation." For the next 3 hours, I answered questions about testing procedures, documentation protocols, and the Bright X formula. Specifically, I explained the original findings, the pressure to alter results, and provided timeline details without mentioning my relationship with Mason, who remained conspicuously absent. "Who else was involved in modifying these reports?" Rivera asked. "That's complicated." I hesitated. Many people felt pressured. "We need names, Miss Winters." My stomach tightened. Julian had 2 kids in college. Priya was pregnant with her first child. They'd participated in altering results, but under the same duress I'd faced. "I'd prefer to focus on those who directed these changes," I said carefully. Rivera nodded, making a note. "We'll get there." By evening, the investigation had expanded to 3 conference rooms. Employees were being interviewed individually. Astrid remained sequestered with legal counsel. Her office door closed. At 8:17 p.m., security approached my desk. "Miss Winters, you're required to surrender your badge and vacate the premises immediately." "On whose authority?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Executive order from Miss Hunt. Your access has been terminated." I handed over my badge, packed my personal items into a cardboard box, and walked out without looking back. The security guard avoided eye contact as he escorted me to the exit. Outside, the autumn air bit sharply. My car sat alone in the darkened parking lot. I placed my box on the passenger seat and sat motionless behind the wheel. The impact of the day finally hitting me. Career gone. Income gone. Professional reputation potentially destroyed. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Lyra speaking, it's Rivera. We have questions about the flash drive you provided." I swallowed hard. "What about it? Like this documentation is extensive." "How long have you been collecting this evidence?" "Since the first time I was asked to change results." 3 years. "Yes." Silence stretched between us before he continued. "You should know we've expanded our investigation to include potential securities violations and consumer fraud. This goes beyond safety regulations." My hands began trembling. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means you should get legal representation immediately. You'll be called to testify." The call ended, leaving me clutching the steering wheel in the darkness. This was bigger than I'd anticipated. Much bigger. I drove home in a fog, barely registering the familiar streets. My apartment felt foreign somehow. The same furniture, same walls, but nothing felt right anymore. I'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. At 11:43 p.m., my phone lit up with Astrid's name. Against better judgment, I answered, "You malicious little parasite." Her voice vibrated with rage. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Protected consumers from respiratory damage. You've destroyed years of work, jeopardized thousands of jobs, all because you couldn't be flexible on one product." "Flexibility isn't the issue. Integrity is." "Integrity?" She laughed bitterly. You signed those reports, your signature, your compliance. You think you're clean in this? You're as implicated as anyone. I see fear spread through my chest. She was right. I'd eventually signed. The fact I'd done so under duress might not matter legally. The investigators have everything, Astrid. Original data, altered reports, timestamps, email exchanges. You recorded private conversations. That's illegal in this state without consent. Another chill. I hadn't considered the legality of my evidence collection. This isn't over, she continued. Not remotely. You think you've won some righteous battle. You've started a war you cannot possibly win. The line went dead. Sleep eluded me that night. By morning, industry gossip channels were buzzing. 3 executives were placed on administrative leave. Stock values dropping. Rumored criminal investigation. At 10:15 a.m., my doorbell rang. An expressionless courier handed me an envelope. Inside, a notice of legal action against me personally for corporate espionage, theft of proprietary information, and violation of non-disclosure agreements. The company was suing me for $20 million. My phone buzzed with a text from Mason. Expected, don't panic. Meet me at Riverside Park at noon. The park bench overlooked churning water. Mason arrived precisely at 12, sitting without greeting. They're coming after me legally, I said. Of course they are. It's standard intimidation. They're claiming I stole proprietary information. You documented criminal activity. Different thing entirely. He handed me a business card. Catherine Jiao, best whistleblower attorney in the state. She's expecting your call, whistleblower. The word felt foreign on my tongue. That's exactly what you are, and there are protections. I stared at the rushing water. They'll destroy me professionally, not if we move faster. He turned to face me. Here's what happens next. The commission is expanding the investigation. Securities violations, wire fraud, conspiracy. This isn't about one unsafe product anymore. It's about systematic deception at executive levels. What about the others? My team members were pressured. Mason's expression softened slightly. Cooperating witnesses typically receive consideration. And me, you're patient zero in this outbreak. Your documentation makes the case. But yes, you signed those final reports. The river blurred before me, so I've destroyed myself too. Not necessarily. Mason checked his watch. Catherine will explain your options, but time matters now. Astrid and her allies are already building their defense, which will be that you were disgruntled over a postponed promotion, that you manufactured evidence, that you conspired with competitors. I felt sick. None of that is true. Truth requires proof, which you have. But never underestimate desperate executives with resources. As if summoned by his warning, my phone displayed a message from an unknown number. Lyra, we should talk. I can make this lawsuit disappear. Astrid, I showed Mason the message. Perfect, he said. She's reaching out now. We can really begin. Begin what? His expression remained neutral, but something shifted behind his eyes. Getting everything you deserve. 3 days later, Catherine Zio's corner office offered a panoramic view of the city skyline. Her reputation as fierce and meticulous was evident in everything from her precisely arranged desk to her rapid-fire questioning. Let me be absolutely clear, she said after reviewing my documents. You've presented compelling evidence of corporate malfeasance, but your position remains precarious because I ultimately signed the reports partially, but also because whistleblower cases are marathons, not sprints. The company has resources to fight this for years. I don't have years of legal funds. That's why we'll file under question provisions. If the government recovers damages, you'll receive a percentage. My fees come from that recovery and the $20 million lawsuit against me. Catherine smiled for the first time. A transparent intimidation tactic will counter-sue for wrongful termination and witness intimidation. My phone buzzed again. Astrid, last chance to talk tomorrow. This goes beyond your control. Catherine read the message over my shoulder. She's fishing, likely recording all communications. What should I do? Nothing, absolutely nothing. She closed my file, at least not yet. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the silent phone. Everything in me wanted to respond to Astrid, to confront her directly. Years of suppressed words pressed against my ribs, demanding release. Instead, I followed Catherine's instructions. Complete silence. The next morning brought the company's next move, and it was devastating. A press release appeared on industry news sites. Whistleblower previously terminated for data manipulation, with my professional headshot prominently displayed. The article quoted internal sources claiming I'd been dismissed weeks earlier for falsifying safety data, then retaliated with baseless accusations. My phone exploded with notifications. Former colleagues, professional contacts, even my doctoral advisor all messaging with variations of, "Is this true and what's happening?" By noon, someone had leaked portions of my personnel file to a journalist, highlighting a documented pattern of inconsistency in my work. The manufactured evidence was meticulously crafted, performance reviews subtly rewritten, minor workplace disagreements reframed as conflicts, routine questions about my methodologies presented as serious concerns. Catherine called immediately. "Don't respond to anyone. This is standard character assassination." "They're destroying everything I've built," I said, my voice barely steady, exactly as intended. "They want you to be emotional and reactive. It's working. Stay focused. Document every false claim for our defamation countersuit." By evening, the damage had spread. My LinkedIn profile is flooded with disconnection notices. A recruiter withdrew a tentative interview offer. Former professors distanced themselves. 3 years of professional reputation vanished in hours. Worse came the following day when Julian texted. "They're making us all sign statements about your erratic behavior, claiming you manipulated test results to undermine Astrid after she delayed your promotion." I'm so sorry. My chest tightened. What are you going to do? I have twins in college, LRA. No savings, no options. I closed my eyes. I understand. Do you? "They're saying you stole company property, modified data to damage the company, coached us to support your lies." None of that happened. I know, but there are 20 people here with families and mortgages. They've positioned us brilliantly. Either we turn against you or we become suspects ourselves. I didn't blame him. Under similar pressure, with children depending on me, wouldn't I make the same choice? That night, alone with peppermint tea and crushing anxiety, I received another message from Astrid. "This can still end. Meet me tomorrow." Riverside Cafe 1000 AM. I forwarded it to Catherine, who called immediately. "Absolutely not. It's a trap. What if I record the conversation? That strengthens their claim you've been illegally recording. Don't engage." But as the night stretched endlessly before me, something hardened inside. Astrid believed she controlled this narrative that economic vulnerability and professional isolation would force my surrender. She'd calculated everything except my capacity for strategic patience. By morning, I'd made my decision. I texted Catherine, "Meeting Astrid, my choice. Will accept the consequences." Her response was immediate. "Stop, do not do this." I silenced my phone. Riverside Cafe bustled with morning customers. Astrid sat at a corner table, elegant as always, in a charcoal dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her smile flickered when she saw me, triumphant yet cautious. "Thank you for coming," she said, gesturing to the chair opposite her. "Coffee? I prefer clarity," she nodded, seemingly appreciative of my directness. "Here it is. This situation has escalated unnecessarily. Lives and livelihoods disrupted. Your reputation is damaged, possibly irreparably. You're doing defensive measures. You struck first." A server approached. Astrid ordered cappuccino while I requested water. "Here's my offer," she continued when we were alone again. "Withdraw your allegations, sign our confidentiality agreement. In exchange, we drop our lawsuit and provide a neutral reference for future employment and the investigation. We'll handle the regulatory concerns by continuing to present falsified safety data." Her expression hardened by addressing valid questions through appropriate channels without unnecessary public disruption. People could be harmed by that product. Minimal risk, enormous benefit. You're still missing the bigger picture. She leaned forward. "Let me be clear. If you refuse this extremely generous offer, we will ensure no one in this industry ever trusts you again." That campaign seems well underway. "You haven't seen anything yet." She sipped her coffee. "We have considerable resources and significant motivation to cover criminal behavior to protect thousands of jobs and revolutionary products from one person's inflexibility." Astrid placed a folder on the table. "Our final offer is exceptionally generous under the circumstances, available for 24 hours. I left the folder untouched. Why are you really here, Astrid? You know I won't sign that. Something flashed behind her eyes. Frustration, perhaps, or grudging respect, because litigation is expensive and investigations are disruptive. Efficient resolution benefits everyone, especially those facing criminal charges. Her smile remained fixed. There will be no criminal charges. You seem very confident. I understand how systems work, how evidence must meet specific standards, how witness credibility matters. She tapped the folder. And how whistleblowers often discover the process destroys them regardless of outcome. I finally reached for the folder, opening it slowly. Inside, a confidentiality agreement statement withdrawing all allegations and bank transfer authorization for $175,000. Hush money transition assistance, Astrid corrected. Enough to relocate and restart elsewhere. Quite generous considering your actions. I closed the folder. The investigators already have everything. Investigations can stall, priorities shift. Resources get reallocated. She checked her watch. 24 hours, Lyra. Choose wisely. Walking home, I called Catherine, who answered immediately with controlled fury. I specifically instructed you. I know, but it was necessary. Meeting her undermines our legal position. She'll claim you were attempting extortion. She offered me $175,000 to disappear. Silence stretched between us before Catherine spoke again. Tell me you recorded that. No, but someone did. 3 days later, we learned the investigation had expanded to securities fraud based on evidence the company had knowingly misrepresented product safety to investors. 4 executives were placed on administrative leave. The stock dropped 17% in 2 days. Astrid's face appeared on business news, tight-lipped and defiant. These allegations are baseless. We maintain our commitment to product safety and consumer trust. That evening, Mason called. You met with her against all advice. I needed to confirm something. What possible confirmation was worth risking everything? Whether she was recording our meeting, he went silent. Then Astrid records everything important. Always has. Her documentary memory, she calls it. I needed to know if she'd attempt to manipulate my words. How could you possibly know if she was recording? I smiled for the first time in weeks. Because I designed her recording system 3 years ago, the day Astrid had recruited me, she'd proudly demonstrated her discreet recording setup, her insurance policy, against misrepresentations. Whenever she activated it, a tiny blue light reflected on her watch face. During our cafe meeting, that reflection had been unmistakable. She recorded herself offering me hush money to withdraw evidence of criminal activity, I explained. Mason inhaled sharply. That's federal witness tampering, among other charges. But here's what matters. She believes I'm cornered and desperate. She thinks I'll eventually break under the pressure and take her offer. Will you? I'm counting the hours until her deadline expires. At precisely 10:01 the next morning, 1 minute after Astrid's ultimatum expired, Catherine filed our comprehensive counterattack, wrongful termination, defamation, whistleblower retaliation, and witness intimidation. Simultaneously, Mason's team executed search warrants at executive homes and the company headquarters. By afternoon, news broke that investigators had seized Astrid's personal devices, including her watch with its built-in recording system. Her own meticulous documentation habit had created perfect evidence of criminal conspiracy. The company's legal team immediately distanced themselves from her actions, calling them unauthorized individual decisions contrary to corporate values. 3 board members resigned. The stock fell another 23%. 2 weeks later, criminal charges were filed against Astrid and 2 senior executives. Securities fraud, wire fraud, witness tampering, conspiracy. In the aftermath, the new interim CEO called me personally. We'd like to discuss your return with appropriate compensation and position. I'm not interested. Name your terms. We need to demonstrate our commitment to ethics. You need a public redemption story. We need someone with your integrity. I nearly laughed. You fired me for my integrity. Previous management made terrible mistakes. Help us correct them. I considered the offer briefly. Vindication, restoration, power to implement real safety protocols. My terms: complete overhaul of safety testing, independent oversight, compensation for affected employees, public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. That's significant. Let me consult the board. 3 days later, they accepted every condition. I returned as Executive Vice President of Product Safety and Compliance with triple my previous salary and direct board reporting authority. My first official act, implementing rigid testing protocols that Astrid had once dismissed as excessive and impractical. My second, rehiring colleagues who'd been pressured to compromise their principles. 6 months later, I sat in the courtroom watching Astrid enter her guilty plea. Our eyes met briefly, hers hollow with defeat, mine steady with the quiet satisfaction of justice, served through patience and preparation. The judge addressed her directly. You prioritized profit over public safety, then attempted to destroy the person who exposed that choice. This court sentences you to 68 months in federal prison. As Astrid was led away, Julian leaned toward me. Is everything worth it cost you? I considered the question carefully. The months of stress, professional attacks, financial uncertainty, nights wondering if I'd made a catastrophic mistake. Integrity shouldn't have a price tag, I finally answered. But yes, absolutely worth it. That evening, I visited my mother. Oxygen tank is now her constant companion from decades of chemical exposure. I'd never told her the full story, protecting her from additional worry. How's the new position? She asked. Challenging but meaningful. That's all that matters in the end, she said, squeezing my hand. That you can live with the face in your mirror. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction, but reconstruction. Building something better from the wreckage of what was lost. Astrid lost everything by betraying her principles. I nearly lost everything by defending mine. The difference was I could begin again with my foundation intact. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more corporate integrity battles. Have you ever had to stand alone for what's right? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might give someone else the courage they need. Remember, sometimes the darkest moments in our careers become the defining ones that lead to our greatest impact.